The living room clock ticked through the small hours. Lindsay stood at the window, the coffee in her hand long cold. She stared at the parking space downstairs. The familiar black SUV still hadn't appeared. It was 1:27 a.m. She knew he wasn't coming home again. Her phone lit up with a text from Maya. Saw him walk into the Newport Harbor Hotel with her at 10. Lindsay didn't answer. She reread the message again and again, the bluish glow washing her face in frost. She moved to the couch, her steps soundless. Under the dim yellow lamplight, the framed wedding photo on the coffee table glared at her. In the picture, they were all smiles. Her head on his shoulder. She flipped the frame face down. A gray film of dust coated the back. Her phone buzzed again, this time a banking alert. Newport Harbor Hotel charge. $982. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Lindsay clenched her jaw until her knuckles went white. She knew the place. It was where they'd toasted their last anniversary. A humorless laugh slipped through her lips, so soft it was almost inaudible. At that instant, the last shred of doubt burned away. She opened her call log. The last time Jason had bothered to ring her was 3 days ago. Working late, don't wait up. He'd sounded matter of fact. Zero guilt. She hit redial. After a few rings he declined. She tried again, same result. On the third attempt the line dumped her straight to voicemail. A clear sign she'd been blocked. Lindsay stared at the screen, watching her year-old marriage ignite and collapse in pixelated effigy. She rose and walked into the bedroom. On the nightstand sat the bottle of perfume he'd given her, last month's anniversary gift. She twisted the cap. The scent was still cloying. It made her stomach turn. She hurled the bottle into the trash. The glass exploded with a midnight crack. She gazed down at the glittering shards, transfixed. Keys suddenly jingled outside the door. Her head jerked up, pulse hammering. The door swung open and the man lurched in, reeking of whiskey. He wore a pressed suit, hair perfect, a trace of lazy amusement on his lips. "Why are you still up?" His voice was husky with fatigue. Lindsay didn't move. She only stared. He frowned, draping his jacket over the sofa. "I was at the office." The lie came smooth, gaze steady. She gave a cold laugh, tone flat. "The Newport Harbor Hotel counts as the office now?" He froze. "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, she stepped to the coffee table and thrust the phone at him. On the screen, the charge alert, and Maya's shot of him with a woman in white. His smile in the photo looked gentler than it had on their wedding day. Color drained from his face. He lunged to snatch the phone. Lindsay stepped back, eyes razor sharp. "Practice your lying a little harder next time." He swore under his breath and started his defense. "She's a client in business entertainment. You escort clients to hotel rooms with your arm around them?" One sentence eviscerated every excuse. He fell silent, complexion darkening. Lindsay moved to the dresser and yanked the drawer. Inside lay the neat stack of receipts and travel clothes he'd left behind. She flung them to the floor one by one. A prosecutor presenting exhibits. "You said you were out of town." Vance Corp had no out-of-town projects that week. "You claimed all-nighters at the office." "The receptionist told me you left by 6. "You swore your phone died. Yet your card kept talking to the bank." Piece by piece, his belt, shirt, tie, she hurled them down. He exploded. "You've lost it." Lindsay paused, lifted her gaze, frost in every word. "Not lost, just finally seeing how filthy you are." He lunged. Her palm cracked across his cheek. The slap rang through the hush, his skin blooming crimson. His eyes bulged, breath ragged. Her voice stayed eerily calm. "As of tonight you're barred from this house. I've retained a divorce attorney. The papers get signed tomorrow." When he opened his mouth again, she was already in the bedroom. She locked the door, sealing herself inside. He shouted and pounded outside, but she tuned him out. She slid down the door until she sat on the carpet. Only then did the tears fall, spotting the hard wood. The room was hushed except for her uneven breathing. Her stare lost focus, strength seeping from every limb. Minutes crawled like hours, the air turning to lead. She closed her eyes, recalling every tender lie. Those embraces, those promises, now all sneered back at her. She stopped crying and, drained, drifted into sleep. It felt like waking from a nightmare, only to find morning still distant. Dawn light knifed through the curtains. Lindsay woke with a splitting head. The previous night surged over her like a rogue wave. She pressed her temples and tried to breathe. Her screen lit. Unknown caller. She hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice came through, measured and wary. "Lindsay, it's Linda." "Who?" Lindsay's brows knitted. Caution flared. "I work with Jason. I just saw the news and I thought you should know." "What do you know?" Linda paused, then spoke carefully. "He and that woman, this isn't the first time. Lindsay's heart hammered. You're certain? I have proof. A soft click echoed as Linda emailed several photos. One showed Jason and the woman in white sharing pastries at Roast Cafe, heads nearly touching. Another caught them entwined under the awning of her Brooklyn loft past midnight. Lindsay studied the images, her stare glacial. Why send these to me? Linda's reply was low. Because I'm collateral damage too. He promised he'd file for divorce, but he never did. Silence stretched between them before the line went dead. The room sank back into ominous quiet. Lindsay opened her laptop and searched the woman's name. Stacy, 5 years younger than her, employed at a boutique design firm in downtown Manhattan. Profile touted as rising talent. Her social feed was a daily journal, brunches, gallery openings, and Jason. Always Jason. The smiles were radiant, a painful contrast to her own exhaustion. A dull ache pulsed in her chest. She stepped onto the balcony and watched anonymous crowds swarm the street below, feeling erased from her own life. Her phone vibrated. Maya again. I'm crashing at yours tonight. She nodded, though Maya couldn't see. She would face everything now, no more hiding. That night she slipped into a simple black dress. Makeup was subdued, yet it failed to mask the fatigue bruising her eyes. Maya waited at the door. Come on, sitting alone is toxic. Side by side they walked into Pulse, a loud neon nightclub in Queens. Strobes sliced the dark. Bass thundered against rib cages. Lindsay ordered whiskey, nursing the slow burn. The cold knot inside her began to smolder. Maya leaned close. Want to hear how he met her? Lindsay gave a single nod. I know that woman. Her name is Stacy. Maya's tone was complicated. She's wanted to steal your husband from day one. Jason's so dazzled by her he can't think straight. Lindsay's eyes sharpened. And him. Why? He says she's young, full of energy. He says you're too dull, that you don't understand him. Maya sighed. When he said those things, I knew he was dead wrong. Lindsay bit her lip, storm clouds rolling inside her. She stood abruptly and walked toward the corner of the bar. There, Jason and Stacy were toasting, laughing. The lights lit up their faces, their smiles dazzling. Lindsay watched, heart slicing open. She didn't scream, didn't demand answers. She only watched. Quiet. Jason's gaze swept the room and finally landed on her. His grin froze. Stacy noticed, eyes flickering. Lindsay turned and left, tears blurring everything. Back home, the rooms were still ice cold. She opened the drawer and took out her wedding band. The ring glinted coldly under the light. She closed her fist and snapped the band in two. The pieces slid to the floor. Her phone buzzed. Jason's text. Can we talk, please? She didn't answer. Night fell. Loneliness crashed over her like a tide. She tossed in bed. Sleep impossible. Memories flashed like scenes from a movie. The sweetness of their first meeting at a Chicago art gallery. The vows at the wedding ceremony in upstate New York. The tears after their first fight. She felt her heart tearing into fragments. Outside, a car horn blared. She rose and looked out the window. The street was empty. Only street lamps blinking alone. She breathed deep and decided she'd see a lawyer tomorrow. She would fight for every right. This marriage, she was ending it. The next morning, the sun was still bright. Lindsay put on a crisp business suit, neat and sharp. She stepped into Hartwell Associates, a top divorce firm in Manhattan. Face set, the divorce attorney handed her a folder. These are the divorce papers. Lindsay took them, gaze calm. I want a fair split of assets. The attorney nodded. No problem, we'll secure the best deal for you. She nodded back, but inside felt hollow. Images of happier days flooded in. Tears slid down before she could stop them. She wiped them away and kept signing. Leaving Hartwell Associates. She didn't go home. She headed to Jason's office at Vance Corp headquarters in Midtown. He was at his computer, brows locked in a frown. Seeing her, he froze. What are you doing here? Lindsay said evenly. We need to talk. Jason stayed silent. No rebuttal. She placed the divorce papers in front of him. Sign. He took them, conflict swirling in his eyes. You sure? Lindsay nodded. Certain. The air felt heavy enough to crush. Jason lowered his head and signed. When he finished, he looked up. Sorry. The word was barely a breath. Lindsay gave no answer. She turned and walked out, steps steady. Her heels echoed down the corridor. She knew the road ahead was long, but she had taken the first step. Outside the Vance Corp building, late spring carried a chill. She clutched the signed divorce papers. A boulder still sat on her heart. Memories of their life together replayed, sweetness to fracture, like illusions. Her phone lit. A message from Maya. What now? Lindsay inhaled. Typed back. Sort my head first. Maya replied instantly. Come over tonight, don't sit alone. Lindsay agreed. Evening. She arrived at Maya's apartment in Brooklyn. The rooms were warm. A scented candle flickered. Maya handed her a mug of hot tea. They sat on the couch, silence stretching. What's your plan? Maya asked softly. Lindsay stared at the night outside. I don't know. Don't rush. Time will sort things. Maya squeezed her hand, lending strength. Lindsay asked suddenly, any word on Jason lately? Maya nodded. He's been everywhere with that woman. Paparazzi catching their dinners at Tribeca hotspots again and again. Lindsay's brows knit tight. He has no intention of changing. This whole marriage was a lie from the start. Her voice trembled. Yet it was steel. I can't live like this anymore. Maya patted her shoulder. You have to pull yourself together. Lindsay met her eyes, resolve hardening. Next day she drove to Jason's house in Westchester. The front garden was wild and overgrown. Inside, dust filled the air. The rooms stood empty. Half-drawn curtains let sunlight fall in patches. She walked into the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. Clothes hung neat but lifeless. In a drawer she found a scrap of paper. Got things to handle. Don't wait up. The scrawl looked rushed. She pocketed the note. This place no longer felt like home. On her way back, her phone buzzed. Jason again. Can we meet and talk? Lindsay's fingers trembled over the screen. She didn't reply. Night settled. She stood on her balcony. City lights glittered, mocking her solitude. A ringtone sliced the quiet. Unknown caller. Lindsay. It's me, Stacy. The woman's voice was ice. Don't think you can take Jason back. Lindsay's heart lurched. I won't walk away. Stacy went on. He needs me. Understands him better than you ever could. Lindsay answered coldly. He's no longer yours. A pause on the line. We'll see about that. Lindsay ended the call, grip white on her phone. The war had only begun. Next morning she headed to Skyfit, Jason's regular gym in Manhattan. She hoped his friends might let something slip. Inside, Jason was pounding a treadmill. She hesitated at the entrance, then stepped in. Jason spotted her, frown darkening. What are you doing here? Lindsay held his stare. I need to know what's really going on. Jason stopped the belt, wiping sweat. What do you want to know? Lindsay asked. That woman, Stacy. His gaze flickered. She's just a coworker. There's nothing between us. Lindsay gave a cold laugh. You've been seen everywhere together. Stop lying. Jason stayed silent. The gym's noise seemed to hush. Lindsay drew a steady breath. I'm not giving up. Conflict twisted in Jason's eyes. Finally he sighed. You want the truth? Lindsay nodded. I did have something with her, but we were both lost. I didn't know what to do, and she isn't what I want. Lindsay's heart churned. Then what do you want? Jason smiled bitterly. To go back. But that's impossible. She shook her head. You can't treat me this way. How am I supposed to believe you? Jason had nothing to say. Lindsay turned and walked away. She knew every wound he dealt could never be erased. That night she walked the streets alone. Neon stretched her shadow long across the sidewalk. Her phone buzzed with a text. Tomorrow noon, some things I need to say face to face. The sender was Jason. She stopped under a street lamp, heart hammering. Next day, noon, Roast Cafe in Brooklyn Heights. Jason sat by the window, coffee cradled in both hands, face grave. Lindsay pushed through the door, eyes steady. He lifted his gaze, gave a weary half smile. Thanks for coming. She slid into the chair, saying nothing. Jason drew a slow breath. I know I screwed up. I want to make it right. Lindsay answered with a cold laugh. You can't make this right. Betrayal's carved into me. Jason's voice turned bitter. I'll spend my life making it up to you. She shook her head. The past is gone. What I need is honesty from here on. If you still love me, stop lying. Jason nodded, eyes fierce. I'll change. Silence settled, thick with everything unsaid. Lindsay stared out at the traffic. A sliver of doubt twisted inside her, but confusion and pain still outweighed it. She knew the road ahead stayed rough. She needed time, and she needed courage. Outside Roast Cafe she inhaled sharply, eyes fixed forward. She started walking. The city sparkled, yet loneliness clung to her like fog. Her phone rang. Maya, how'd it go? Lindsay murmured, complicated, but he finally admitted. This is only the first round. Maya's tone was steel. Brace yourself. Lindsay closed her eyes, wind brushing her cheeks. Night deepened. The story kept rolling. Morning light slipped through the curtains and slid across her face. She woke exhausted. Last night's talk still churned inside her. She stood before the mirror. The woman staring back looked hollow, skin ash pale. Her screen lit. A message from Jason. Let's talk tonight. She didn't answer. At breakfast Maya called. You holding up? Lindsay whispered. I don't know how to keep going. Don't rush yourself. One breath at a time. After hanging up she headed out for air. Spring breeze skimmed the avenues. She ducked into a bookstore in Manhattan, thumbed through a psychology book, hunting answers. Her phone vibrated. Unknown caller. She picked up. A familiar voice greeted her. Lindsay. It's Stacy. Her stomach lurched. There's nothing to discuss. She cut the call and flung the phone onto the couch. Fury surged. The doorbell rang. She opened it to find Stacy holding a bouquet. I came to apologize. Lindsay blocked the doorway. Stacy didn't budge. I know I was wrong. I never meant to wreck your marriage. Lindsay sneered. Wreck? You stole my husband. That was Jason's choice, not mine. Stacy's head dropped. Tears spotting the pavement. I loved him too, but I don't want to be the woman who breaks vows. Lindsay's rage cooled a degree. What do you want? Stacy met her eyes. We could find a way to coexist. For his sake, and ours. Lindsay said nothing. They stared, the air between them solid as glass. Stacy finally turned, leaving the scent of lilies behind. Lindsay shut the door and leaned against it. Tears streamed anew. That evening she sat on the balcony alone. Jason rang. She let it go to voicemail. His text read, "We need to talk." She typed back, "Not now." She understood the war had barely begun. Next morning she met her divorce attorney. She handed over a fresh asset list. He warned, "Fight for every penny this time." She agreed, ice crystallizing in her chest. On the walk home she spotted Jason and Stacy on a Manhattan street corner. Heads bent together. Intimate. She didn't interrupt, just watched. Her heart split, but she kept walking. Inside, she yanked open a drawer and pulled out their wedding album. Photos of laughter, trips to the Hamptons, kisses. She tore them one by one, confetti of memories drifting to the rug. Maya checked in, "Stay strong." Lindsay answered, "I will." That night she tossed in bed. Jason and Stacy circling her thoughts. Beyond the window the city glimmered. Indifferent. An idea struck. She had to see someone. She dialed. After 4 rings he answered. "It's Lindsay. I need to meet." A long pause. Then, "Tonight, Roast Cafe." At dusk she walked into the cafe. Across the table sat a man in his 40s. "You're Jason's friend?" He gave a curt nod. Expression solemn. "I know what you've endured, but you don't know the whole truth yet." Lindsay's pulse quickened. "What truth?" He lowered his voice. "Jason's been acting strange. He's running from something." Lindsay froze. "It's not just the affair. There's more." She pinned him with a stare. Waiting. He hesitated, then spoke slowly. "He's tangled in a financial mess. Company money's missing." Lindsay's breath caught. Her fists clenched. "Are you certain?" He nodded. "He's drowning. That pressure maybe pushed him into bad choices." Her thoughts tangled. "What should I do?" "Shield yourself," he urged. "Don't let the fallout hit you harder." She left Roast Cafe chilled to the bone. Wind whipped her hair as she walked home. Inside, she found Jason's phone on the table. The screen showed an unread text. Hands shaking, she swiped. Did tonight's transfer to the offshore account go smooth? Lindsay's brows knitted tight. Jason's troubles were deeper than she dreamed. She lifted the phone and called him. When he answered he sounded wrecked. "Linz, leave it alone." Lindsay's voice cut like steel. "I can't. I need the truth." He went silent. "I'll come home. We'll talk." She ended the call, emotions colliding inside her. Sleep stayed elusive as she weighed his secrets against their marriage. Moonlight painted silver stripes across her empty bed. Dawn came. Jason didn't return. Lindsay sat in the silent loft, phone in lap. At last it rang. "Jason, I can't come back." Tears blurred her vision. "Why?" "The debt's too big. I'm afraid I'll drag you under." Lindsay gripped the phone. "We're married. Whatever happens, I won't give up on you." Jason said nothing. She knew the storm had only just gathered force. Outside, wind rattled the panes like a warning of worse to come. Lindsay's fingers whitened around her phone as she braced for the storm that was about to break. The first pale spear of dawn slid through the gap in the curtains. When Lindsay woke, Jason's words still circled like vultures. "I'm in too deep." She squeezed her eyes shut. The pain felt physical. She rose, dressed with mechanical precision, and went to find him. The air inside Vance Corp headquarters weighed 1,000 pounds. The receptionist murmured that Jason was locked in the conference room. Lindsay walked straight in. He looked as if he hadn't slept in a week. "We need to talk." Jason lifted his head, defeat flickering across his face. "About this debt. What's your plan?" Lindsay let the silence stretch. "I'll help, but the price is total honesty." A bleak smile tugged at his mouth. "I'm afraid I'll drag you down with me. We're married. We sink or swim together." He nodded, something hardening in his eyes. When the meeting broke up they walked to the garage. Jason pulled a thin stack of papers from his briefcase. The company ledgers. Lindsay took them, scanning each column. The numbers felt like lead poured into her chest. "The exposure is enormous." She looked up. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jason exhaled. "I couldn't stand the thought of you worrying, so you decided to carry it alone." Lindsay shook her head slowly. "Marriage doesn't leave room for secrets." Jason stared at the concrete, saying nothing. She drove home to think. Windows down, mind racing. On the doorstep the FedEx man handed her a padded envelope. Inside, a single sheet and a glossy 5x7 block letters across the page. "Jason's secrets go deeper than you think." The photo showed Jason with his arm around a woman she didn't recognize. Both of them laughing over champagne at a Miami nightclub. nightclub. Lindsay's stomach lurched. She speed-dialed Maya. I need backup. Where? My loft. Maya beat her there by 10 minutes. They spread the letter and photo under the pendant lamp. The note claimed Jason had been wiring money to this woman for months. Lindsay felt the floor tilt. Maya squeezed her shoulder. You can't let this simmer. Lindsay swallowed. Tonight, I'm meeting her. They chose a riverfront bistro in Brooklyn with floor-to-ceiling glass. The woman arrived first, elegant, contained, eyes like a card shark's. Who are you? Lindsay asked, ice in her voice. Susan, she answered, unruffled. Jason's business associate, and apparently his other secret. Susan lifted a brow. Business and pleasure overlap. Jason owes me 7 figures. He's been dodging me. Lindsay's pulse hammered against her collarbone. I'll confront him. Susan's gaze sharpened. Be careful, Lindsay. This isn't some garden variety IOU. Outside, the wind off the East River cut straight through her coat. She felt carved open. Back home she found a post-it on the mirror. Out of town for a few days. Don't worry. J. Lindsay crushed the note in her fist. She knew evasion when she saw it. For the next 72 hours she dove into his files. Eyes burning. Hidden subledgers surfaced like debris after a shipwreck. Every entry another snare. She called Hartwell Associates. We need a full asset revaluation yesterday. The partner promised immediate action. The weight on her sternum kept growing. She climbed the narrow stairs to Jason's childhood study at his family's estate in Connecticut. His leather-bound journal fell open in her hands. Page after page of panic and self-loathing. He had tried to pay the debt, only to sink deeper. Tears blurred the ink. The man she loved was drowning, and the water kept rising. Meanwhile her phone vibrated with Stacy's number. We have to talk. Lindsay hesitated, then accepted. Stacy's voice came low. Urgent. Jason's in freefall. I want to help you. Lindsay's laugh cracked like ice. Since when do you care? Because he burned me too. Maybe we can both get something back. Lindsay stared at the city lights twinkling across the bay. Maybe the wreckage was even bigger than she'd thought. The next morning an anonymous courier slipped a manila envelope under her door. Inside, offshore wire transfers. Shell company certificates registered in the Cayman Islands. Jason's signature scrawled at the bottom. Her heart jackhammered. She texted Jason, Roast Cafe on Pier 9, San Francisco. 1 hour. They sat at a corner table, steam rising between them. Tell me the rest, she said, voice flat. Jason rubbed a hand over unshaven jaw. The list is endless. I don't even know where to begin. I'm terrified I'll lose you. Lindsay's eyes stung. Trust is the only thing we still own. Give it back, or we have nothing. Jason's shoulders shook. Tears hit the saucer. I'll fix this. Whatever it takes. Lindsay closed her eyes. Give me time. Neither spoke again. Outside, rain whispered against the plate glass like a priest's absolution. She left first, the bell over the door chiming a funeral note. Exhaustion settled into her marrow. This road had no mile markers, only landmines. She would need every ounce of strength, for herself, for whatever remained of them. At 3 a.m. her phone screamed on the nightstand. Jason's name glowed. She answered, throat raw. Linz, I need you. His voice sounded gravel rough, freighted with something darker. Lindsay pressed a hand to her sternum. What happened? A long static-filled pause. I can't explain over the phone. Just trust me. Despair and fury braided inside her. I'm coming. The line went dead. She yanked on jeans and a hoodie. Heart sprinting. The night air knifed across the river. She found him under a sodium street lamp in Queens. Suit wrinkled. Eyes bloodshot. Talk, she demanded. Jason glanced over his shoulder. They threatened me. The mob wants me to launder the rest through Vance Corporation. I said no. They weren't happy. Lindsay's breath clouded in the cold. What do you need? Jason's laugh was hollow. For you to stay safe. I'm already in the crosshairs. Jason. She grabbed his hand. Skin icy. We face this together or not at all. He squeezed back. A lifeline. At dawn she started pulling threads. Calling former board members. Doors slammed. Phones clicked off. The silence felt conspiratorial. That night she sat alone in the study. Spreadsheets glowing necrotic blue. Each cell a bullet hole. Maya checked in. You still breathing? Barely, Lindsay admitted. She hung up and stared at the harbor until the sky bruised purple. 2 days later a courier dropped a padded envelope. No return address. Inside, a grainy photo of Jason shaking hands with a man whose face had been carved out of the negative. And a 90-minute audio cassette. She fed it into the old player. A metallic voice. Deliver the wire by Friday or the CEO disappears. Jason's cracked reply. I need more time. Lindsay's hands trembled like leaves in a gale. The next afternoon she tracked him to a motel by the New Jersey Turnpike. His skin looked gray under the flickering neon. Explain, she said, holding up the tape. She handed him the audio cassette. Jason closed closed his eyes and drew a deep breath. That's the mob's man. I owe them money. They won't let me live in peace. Lindsay felt anger and helplessness collide inside her chest. Why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have faced it together. Jason shook his head. I was afraid of dragging you down, but now it's spiraled out of control. Lindsay decided to call the FBI, yet she feared for Jason's safety. She was trapped between two terrors. That night Jason vanished. His phone went straight to voicemail. No one could reach him. Lindsay was on the brink of collapse as she searched everywhere, pleading with friends. Still, no clue surfaced. Days later Jason came back. His face was bruised, his gait unsteady. I'm okay. His voice was frail. Lindsay pulled him into her arms, tears slipping down her cheeks. Don't ever scare me like that again. Jason's voice cracked. I promise you, I'll never hide things from you again. Yet the storm kept gathering. Lindsay noticed a strange license plate outside her door, New Jersey tags. Someone inside the car was watching her every move. Fear took root, then hardened into resolve. She hired a private investigator. She needed the shadow peeled back. The investigator's report said Jason's loan sharks were entangled with several East Coast mob factions. Lindsay inhaled slowly, knowing she would have to tread like glass. One night a text came from an unknown caller. If you want to live, back off. Her fingers froze over the screen. She answered, I won't retreat. Next morning Maya went with her to St. Mary's Hospital in Manhattan. They ran tests to be sure she was safe. The doctor told her to rest. She swallowed her exhaustion and kept digging. She met Jason's divorce attorney. The lawyer warned, this isn't simple. Your safety, his safety, both are on the table. Lindsay nodded. I understand. Meanwhile Stacy reached out. We need to work together. We have the same enemy. Lindsay stayed silent. The wounds of betrayal still bled, but the present danger left her no luxury for grudges. They agreed to meet at Roast Cafe. The air was taut. Words were few. Stacy said, they're watching you, not just Jason. You're a target too. Lindsay's expression turned grave. We joined forces. They struck a pact. They would survive this together. Back home Lindsay packed a suitcase. She would leave the city for a while, head to a cabin in upstate New York, protect herself, wait for the right moment. That night she sat on the balcony, staring at the distant lights. Emotions tangled inside her. She knew the road ahead was jagged, but she would not fold. The phone rang again. Jason sounded drained. Thank you. Lindsay answered softly. We walk this together. Outside, the wind rose, whispering of a bigger tempest nearing. Dawn found Lindsay alone by the window. She gripped her phone. Jason's missed call glowed on the screen. Her pulse quickened. The storm from the night had not calmed. The street below glistened with rain. Shimmers danced under the street lamps. Lindsay rose. She slipped on her coat and stepped outside. Rain ticked against her umbrella, crisp and rhythmic. She walked to the cafe they had once haunted. She ordered a hot coffee and sat. Memories of their easy laughter flooded her mind. The phone vibrated. Jason. Meet tonight. Something big. Lindsay hesitated, then typed, what time? 8. Our old spot in Central Park. She stared through the glass at the rain. Heart nodded. At 8 she arrived. Jason was already there, face grim. They sat on a bench under a shelter. Silence draped the table. Jason spoke first. I've traced more threads. The debt runs deeper, into bigger sharks. Lindsay's fingers tightened around her cup. What do we do? Jason kept his voice low. Move like ghosts. Can't let them feel us push. Lindsay gave a small nod. I'm in. Their eyes locked. Steady. A stranger walked in, gaze sweeping until it pinned Jason. Jason's color drained. The man stepped close and murmured, Jason, they want you. Jason's jaw clenched. They're squeezing. When the intruder left, Jason exhaled. The storm keeps widening. Lindsay clasped his hand. No matter how ugly, we meet it together. Jason's grateful glance lingered. Back home Lindsay found a note taped to her door. Stop digging or pay the price. She tore it up with calm precision. In her chest a vow held, no backing down. Next day she met the detective again. She reviewed every fresh datum. He cautioned, these people play rough. Guard yourself. Lindsay thanked him and pocketed the file. She began hardening her life. Security cameras inside the loft. Routine scrambled. Night brought a call from Jason. I'm being tailed. Stay in tonight. Lindsay's worry cracked through. You stay safe. Jason answered, I will. Days later she ran into Stacy on a rain-slick sidewalk in Manhattan. Their eyes locked. Layers of history between them. Stacy spoke first. We need each other. Only way out is together. Lindsay gave a curt nod. Old scores on ice for now. They set a covert meeting to map defenses. Past midnight an anonymous text pinged. Trust no one. Lindsay's brow furrowed. Suspicion draped every corner. One afternoon she returned to find drawers pulled, closets rifled. Someone had been hunting for something. Terror throttled her breath. She filed a report with the NYPD. Officers advised extra vigilance. She followed their counsel. Heart leaden. Danger lived inside her walls. calls. A month in, Jason sent word, "I need to vanish for a stretch. Handle business off-grid." Lindsay swallowed her ache. "Promise me caution." Jason gave his word. The morning he left, she watched until his car disappeared over the George Washington Bridge. Emptiness echoed through the loft. Tears slipped, uninvited, as night claimed the windows. The days that followed were a tightrope. She checked in with Maya daily. They kept each other upright. Jason's secrets kept surfacing like oil on water. Dark pasts wrapped around her ankles. Some nights despair pinned her to the mattress. Other nights iron resolve steeled her spine. She understood. This marriage was no longer a vow. It was a battlefield. Allies and enemies wore identical smiles. She would stay vigilant, guard herself, and the fragile ember of love that refused to die. The phone rang once more. Jason's tired voice traveled across the distance. "I'm almost home." Lindsay closed her eyes, relief softening her reply. "I'll be waiting." Beyond the glass the city was ink and low wind. The storm, still unfinished, whispered promises of return. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and share with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing tales. See you next time.